Hey there guys, how's it going? Reaper here, and we're finally back with something special now. We are doing the Feral Dragon from Zombicide. And I was originally waiting for this to be done at the end of the Horde box, but my players are reaching a point where they're actually going to be fighting a Feral Red Dragon in D&D, so I kind of need one painted up. I've not primed this in the grey, as you can probably see by now. This is actually primed in Dragon Red, as a big chunk of this mini is red, and while I'm painting on this Banshee Brown, I'm kind of wishing I based it in Banshee Brown in the first place, because this colour covers a lot. And yeah, I am painting Banshee Brown now onto all of the scales, the spine. I don't do the teeth at this point. I do the horns though. And of course, this takes a while, because obviously the red is already done and I don't really want to go over the red again, but at the same time, if I do get some on the red, it's not hard to cover Banshee Brown, as it is basically just an off-white. As you can see, that it's a chest done, and now we'll move on to the big spine part, which goes down the entire mini from top to bottom. So brace yourself, this is going to take a long time to do, and this mini as a whole took me roughly 3 hours to paint from start to finish, which means this is by far the longest video I'm going to have on my channel for painting. The only things that might take longer, well, nothing in Zombicide will take longer than this, but once the Reaper Bones Kickstarter shows up, there are some big minis in there that might take just as long, if not longer. And of course, I haven't attached the wings yet, so I do paint the wings entirely separate, as I want them to be able to get detached so they can go back in the box. There we go, that is the dragon done. Now I move on to the wings. And for the wings, it's just every part in between those sort of like spine bits that are on the wing that hold it together is just going to be this Banshee brown. Now of course there are no lines to mark where the wings start and the spine bits start as well, so it's sort of just eyeball it to roughly where you think it will be, because there will be a wash and a dry brush going over these anyway, but you still kind of want it to be roughly where it should be so you don't have to do so many touch-ups later on. But that is it, that is the wing, and the second wing is the exact same. So in this video I'm only going to show the first wing as I do them, because there's no point in me doing both wings in the same video, they're going to be the exact same. But now we've moved on to gunmetal, which obviously is the armor plates on this dragon, and he has some weird ones. I can't see any straps to see where these are held on. It looks like he's just got these metal plates bolted to him, which, knowing dragons how they are in D&D, not going to be happy with it. So whoever did this is probably dead by now. As with the Banshee Brown as well, you can sort of be a little bit messy with it, but still try and be careful, because you will have to touch up the red that's already there. Because I try my best just not to use any red in this painting, because I want to just use what's there. And for the wings, those three plates are the only metallic things I can see on the wing, so it doesn't exactly take long. Now we move on to Necromancer's cloak, which is claws and the horns at the base of his face. So the ones attached to his chin I do in this colour, just to sort of mix it up a bit, as there's a lot of Banshee brown. There we go, that's it for the dragon. And on the wings is all the tips of these spines, because they look like they are just sharp, jagged. They look like bone when you actually look at the mini, but I figured there's a lot of brown on this already. There's no point in adding more to it. Let's add some different colours. And it turns out quite well in the end, because they look more like claws, as they should do. And of course at the top is an actual claw. Now a lot of painting them on the top is about eyeballing it, but now we've moved on to a colour that I'm not overly keen on doing, but I figured it would make it a little bit better, is the Warlock Purple, and that is for the tongue. And I do the eyes, but it becomes completely pointless later on, as you can't see this after the wash. And now we're on to Dirt Splatter, and this is just for the inside of the broken bone on the head, along with the tip of the actual one that's still intact. And then once you move on to the wings, this is a dry brush on all the Banshee Brown. As you kind of want it to be a bit more sort of dark and leathery for this, as it's not actual bone. And this was quite a weird experience. I'm dry brushing a darker colour over a light colour, which normally we do the other way around, but this makes more sense as the thicker areas would actually be darker as the light would get through the smaller areas. Now we're up to Dungeon Grey, and this is highlights for all the Necromancer's cloak. So this is just tips of the claws and the feet and the horns, and of course on the wings I will do all the ends of that. With these wings, it is always the best way I found to do this, to sort of blend it a little bit, is start at the tip of the wing and brush up, as majority of the paint will stay at the tip and it will just spread and sort of blend a bit more up to the top. Now we're on to the wash stage, which is strong tone for essentially the entire model apart from the red, as red gets its own tone since I have one. As with all washes as well, try not to let it pull too much, as well this will start drying before you finish the entire model for this wash. So as you're going along, just sort of touch up some of the pulled areas and spread it around. It saves you going back to the palette to get more. And I actually ran out of strong tone here, so I had to put the model down and get some more, because I massively underestimated how much this will take to do. But it's always handy to squeeze out less than you need than more, because you can always add more. No, you can't use the stuff that's already been used or already been squeezed out. And for the wings, I actually do the inside of the wing, the entire part, including the red for this, just because it will blend into those sort of leather parts a bit more. And strong tone works quite well on red in general. You could easily do the entire model as this, I just didn't want to use all my strong tone. There we go, that is the wings done. And now on to red tone, which as it's going on looks like strong tone, strangely enough. But of course this is a very red tint. And unlike any other washes, be careful not to mix them in this, as the strong tone is going to be pretty much dry now. It will just go streaky when you add the wash to it. So just try and avoid them mixing together. Whereas with a smaller model, the washes are still going to be wet. They can blend a little bit and it just doesn't affect it. And of course, if you do get some red on the Banshee Brown, that's not a problem. We're going to fix that afterwards, because we're going to add a little bit of extra detail that I don't normally do after a wash, just because this is a big model. And with the wings, is the entire back of the wing is red tone. There is a big enough gap between the two that you can do this quite easily without making the streak marks that you would normally get. There we go. As you can tell, it's quite hard to hold, but that is the red tone done. And now we're on to Phoenix Flames, and this is what I mean by the eyes were completely pointless doing Warlock purple, so I came back and just added these bright yellow eyes as you would get for a fire dragon. And now we're back to Banshee Brown and teeth, horns. This is the more detailed part of Banshee Brown that we need to do, because the next part is dry brushing. Like, you can, by all means, you can go around each individual scale and paint a line just to highlight the edges. I figured that's one way of doing it, but for my videos I like to try and keep it as simple as possible so that everyone can follow along. So we actually dry brush, because dry brushing is a very simple and easy technique to pick up. It does take a little bit of practice at first, but it is just drag the brush up across the scales, and always up. If you drag it down, it just will paint the scale. You have to drag it across the raised edges, and this just picks up on the raised edge, as you can see, and just highlights those at corners. Now, I did go a little bit hard on the chest part, but it worked out alright in the end. You could leave a little bit more paint off the brush and it will just pick up on only the edges. Now, I don't do the dry brush on the horn either. I leave that as is, just so that it has a bit of variation between the actual bulk of the bone. Otherwise it's just going to look like one colour basically for the entire model, and it won't look as good, because you want some detail there. Otherwise it's not going to stand out and it's going to be a big blob of colour. And I do come back and do the wings again with a dry brush. It's just to lighten it back up a little bit, as the strong tone did darken it a lot more than I thought it would. And of course, variation is always good. There we go, that is it for the entire model. It is now just matte black for the base. The same matte black you always use, whichever one you get hold of first. Now, I believe this one, as much as my thing says matte army painter matte black, this is actually Reaper's Master Series Black Primer, which is just a matte black paint, the same as all other matte black paints I use. But I would not recommend using this for basing, or for the base of a mini, as you do have to give it a couple of layers, because being a primer, it doesn't solidify as much and won't cover so well, which I thought was weird once it started drying. But if that's how it is, that's how it is. I probably won't use this to do a base again. There we go. That is the mini complete, and I'm taking the photos with the wings attached as it just adds to the look. This is one of my longest minis, and probably the longest from Zombicide you're going to get. So Cheers for watching, guys. Like and subscribe if you did enjoy, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.